The chamber fell silent when Taesung stood up. Every eye in the massive hall turned toward the human ambassador. He was a small figure compared to the towering aliens around him. His black suit looked plain next to their elaborate robes and armor. But something in his posture made everyone pay attention. "The human race is withdrawing from the Galactic Council," Taesung said. His voice was calm and flat. "Effective immediately. We are leaving all Council worlds, stations, and territories. We will take only what belongs to us. We will cause no damage. We ask for nothing in return." The alien counselors stared at him. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Counselor Vrek of the Talnari began to laugh. It was a deep, rumbling sound that echoed through the hall. Soon, others joined in. The laughter spread like fire through dry grass. "The primitives are leaving," Vrek announced, spreading his forearms wide. "Finally, we are free of their chaos." Taesung did not react. He simply bowed once, turned, and walked out of the chamber. His footsteps were the only sound as the laughter died down. The heavy doors closed behind him with a soft click. Mira, a junior analyst sitting in the observer section, felt her stomach twist. Something about this felt wrong. She had worked with humans for 3 years. They were emotional creatures. They argued. They shouted. They never stayed quiet when they were angry. And Taesung had been very, very quiet. The celebration in the council chamber continued. Counselor Vrek called for wine. Others discussed how they would divide the human territories. The Talnari wanted the mining colonies. The Zythe claimed the trade stations. Everyone had plans. Mira slipped out of the chamber. She needed to see what was happening. She took the transport tube to the observation deck that overlooked the station's docking bays. What she saw made her blood run cold. Human ships were already leaving. Not slowly. Not with the usual delays and paperwork. They moved like a military operation. One ship undocked every 30 seconds. The precision was frightening. Each ship departed exactly on schedule, following paths that never crossed or interfered with each other. She pulled up the station logs on her data pad. Human personnel were checking out of their quarters. All of them. Every single human on the station was leaving. They had packed their belongings, cleared their rooms, and filed all the proper departure forms. The paperwork had been submitted 3 days ago, before the council meeting even happened. They had planned this. Mira's hands shook as she expanded her search. She accessed the council's main database. Human colonies across the galaxy were evacuating. All of them. At the same time, millions of humans, moving like parts of a single machine. She ran to find Counselor Vrek. He was still celebrating in the main chamber, now quite drunk on Talnari wine. "Counselor," she gasped. "The humans are not just leaving the council. They are leaving everything. Every colony, every station. All at once." Vrek waved a hand dismissively. "Good. Let them go back to their little dirt planet. We survived for 10,000 years before they arrived. We will survive after they leave. But Counselor, the coordination required for this." "Enough!" Vrek's voice boomed. "You worry too much, Mira. The humans are children playing at galactic politics. They throw a tantrum when they do not get their way. Let them leave. We will be better without them." Mira left the chamber. She could not shake the feeling that everyone was missing something important. On the edge of council space, Captain Dongwu stood on the bridge of the transport ship Last Light. The vessel was packed far beyond normal capacity. Families filled every available space. They had brought what they could carry and left everything else behind. His daughter, Hei-Won, stood beside him. She was 17, tall and thin, with her mother's sharp eyes. She stared at the view screen, showing the colony world they were leaving. New Busan had been her home since birth. "Father," she said quietly, "why are we really leaving?" "The council did not force us out." Dongwu was silent for a long moment. Outside, the last transport ships were rising from the planet's surface. Hundreds of them, carrying everyone who had lived on New Busan. The colony buildings stood empty below, Lights still on. Machines still running. They had left everything intact. "Do you know the old Earth story about the man who held up the sky?" Dongwu asked. Haewon nodded. Atlas. From Greek mythology. "For 200 years, we have held up their civilization," Dongwu said. "We fixed their machines. We managed their trade routes. We solved their problems. And every day, they told us we were primitive. They told us we were young and foolish. They laughed at us. So we are leaving to punish them?" Haewon asked. "No," Dongwu said. "We are leaving because we are tired of holding up people who spit on us. Let them try to hold up the sky themselves. Then, they will understand what we did for them." Haewon looked back at the view screen. New Busan was shrinking as they accelerated away. "What if they cannot do it? What if everything falls apart? That is not our problem anymore," Dongwu said. Back on the council station, Mira worked through the night. She pulled up every report she could find about human involvement in galactic operations. What she found terrified her. Humans managed 73% of the major trade routes. They had designed the algorithms that kept goods flowing between 1,000 worlds. Without those algorithms, how would anyone know where to send ships? Human engineers maintained the life support systems on most mixed species stations. The other races had the knowledge, but humans had been doing the actual work for decades. Who would do it now? Human diplomats handled thousands of minor disputes every year. The council only heard about major problems. The humans had been quietly preventing small problems from becoming big ones. The more Mira read, the worse it got. Humans were everywhere in the infrastructure of galactic civilization. They had made themselves useful. No, not just useful. Necessary. And now they were gone. Mira tried to bring her findings to the council. She was turned away. The celebration was still going on. When she finally cornered Counselor Kyung-soo from the Varl species, he barely listened. "You are young, Mira," he said condescendingly. "You do not understand. Yes, humans did some work for us, but we can train others to do these jobs. We are superior races with millions of years of history. We will adapt. But, Counselor, the complexity of what they managed." "Enough," Kyung-soo said. "Return to your duties. Stop worrying about the humans. They are gone. It is done." 3 days after Taesung's announcement, the last human ship departed from Council space. The evacuation was complete. Not a single human remained in any Council territory. They had taken all their personal belongings, all their records, all their data. The human quarters stood empty. The human-designed systems kept running, but there was no one left who understood how they really worked. In the council chamber, Vrek raised a glass. "To a new era," he shouted. "Free from human chaos. Free from human emotion. Let us return to the order we knew before they came." Everyone cheered. Only Mira sat silent in the observer section. She looked at her datapad, at all the systems that were suddenly running without supervision, at all the jobs that now had no one to do them. She thought about Taesung's calm face as he delivered his message. The way he had shown no anger, no emotion at all. That was what scared her most. When humans were angry, they shouted. But Taesung had not been angry. He had been done. There was a difference. Outside the station, space was empty where human ships had filled the docking bays. The silence was complete. And in that silence, Mira finally understood. The humans had not left in anger. They had left in disappointment. They had decided the council was not worth their effort anymore. She pulled up the departure logs one more time. Every human evacuation had been coordinated down to the minute. How long had humanity been preparing to leave? How long had they known this day would come? Mira closed her eyes. The celebration continued around her, but she could not join in. The humans had departed in silence. And somehow, that was more frightening than any threat they could have made. 3 months passed since the humans left. At first, Everything seemed fine. The council members congratulated themselves on maintaining order. They hired workers from other species to fill the empty positions. Life continued. Then the problems started. Soon-Hee was a data analyst for the Galactic Trade Commission. She had worked there for 12 years, always in the shadow of her human colleagues. Now those colleagues were gone, and she was supposed to take over their duties. The trade algorithms were breaking down. She stared at her screen, watching red warning lights multiply across the star map. Ships were arriving at stations with no cargo space available. Other stations were waiting for supplies that never came. The system that had run smoothly for decades was falling apart. Soon-Hee pulled up the code that managed the trade routes. It was human-designed, elegant, and complex. She could read it. She understood what each part was supposed to do. But when she tried to fix the errors, everything got worse. The problem was not just the code. It was how everything connected. The humans had built layers upon layers of systems that all talked to each other. Change one thing, and 5 other things broke. She felt like she was trying to repair a watch with hammers. "We need to hire new programmers," she told her supervisor, a Talnari named Kret. "We have programmers," Kret said. "Just fix it." "I cannot fix it. None of us can. The humans designed this system over 50 years. It would take us years just to understand it fully. Understand it. I cannot fix it. None of us can this system." "Then work faster," Kret snapped. "The council is not paying you to make excuses." Soon-Hee returned to her desk. She worked 16 hours a day trying to hold the trade network together. Other analysts did the same. But they were trying to hold back a flood with their bare hands. Ships began avoiding certain routes because they could not trust the scheduling anymore. Traders started making their own deals, bypassing the official network. The careful efficiency of galactic trade was unraveling. On Station Gamma 9, the life support system failed. The warning came at 3 in the morning, station time. Oxygen levels were dropping in the eastern residential section. 8,000 people lived in that section. If the oxygen ran out, they would all die. The station's chief engineer, a Varl named Yuna, rushed to the control room. Her team was already there, frantically checking systems. "What happened?" she demanded. "We do not know," her assistant said. "The system just started shutting down. We are trying to restart it, but nothing works." Yuna pulled up the maintenance logs. The last person to service this system had been a human engineer named Dal Soon. That was 4 months ago, right before the evacuation. "Get me the system manual," Yuna ordered. They found the manual in the database. It was 3,000 pages long, written in technical language that was hard to follow. Yuna started reading, but time was running out. Oxygen levels were still dropping. "There is a backup system," one of her engineers said. "We can activate it manually." They ran to the backup control station. But when they tried to activate it, nothing happened. The backup system was not responding. Yuna felt panic rising in her chest. She had been an engineer for 20 years. She had fixed hundreds of problems, but she had never dealt with anything like this. The humans had always handled the really complex systems. Everyone else had just learned the basics. "Try the emergency protocol," she said. They tried. It did not work. Oxygen levels were now at 70%. People were starting to feel the effects. The station's medical center reported citizens coming in with headaches and dizziness. Yuna stared at the control panel. Somewhere in this maze of systems, there was a solution, but she could not find it. Finally, she did something desperate. She accessed the emergency communications network and broadcast a message to all nearby stations. "This is Station Gamma 9. We have a life support emergency. Does anyone have a human engineer we can consult?" The responses came back quickly. No humans remained in council space. They were all gone. In the end, Yuna and her team saved the station by brute force. They bypassed the automated systems and rigged a manual solution using old equipment from storage. It took 12 hours of frantic work. By the time they finished, oxygen levels had dropped to 50%. Many people had been hospitalized. The station survived. But Yuna sat in her office afterward, shaking. She had nearly failed. 8,000 people had nearly died because she could not understand a system that a human had maintained effortlessly. She pulled up Dalsoon's personnel file. The human had worked on Station Gamma 9 for 15 years. Her performance reviews were excellent. She had requested better pay several times, and been denied. Her supervisor had written, "Adequate performance for a human worker." Yoon felt sick. Soon he finally finished her report 3 weeks later. It had taken her a month to compile all the data. The numbers were devastating. Galactic trade had dropped by 40%. Not because people stopped buying and selling, but because the logistics network was failing. Ships could not find reliable routes. Stations could not manage their inventories. The efficiency that had taken decades to build was gone. She estimated it would take at least 5 years to train new people to manage the system properly. And that assumed they could understand the human-designed code well enough to maintain it. If they had to redesign everything from scratch, it could take 20 years. But her report showed something even worse. The humans had not just designed the trade network. They had designed the power grid management for most stations. They had designed the water recycling systems. They had designed the waste processing. They had designed the communications protocols. Humanity had quietly woven itself into every part of galactic infrastructure. And now, that web was falling apart. Soon he requested a meeting with Counselor Kyung-soo. She had to make him understand how serious this was. Kyung-soo received her in his office. He looked annoyed at the interruption. "Counselor," soon he began, "I have completed my analysis of the human departure's impact. The situation is critical." She presented her report. She showed him the trade numbers. She explained the infrastructure problems. She detailed the failures that were happening across Council space. Kyung-soo listened with obvious impatience. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair. "So what you are saying," he said slowly, "is that we need to hire more workers and train them properly." "Yes. But Counselor, it is more than that. The humans were not just workers. They were holding together systems that the rest of us do not fully understand. We have been taking their work for granted." "Nonsense," Kyung-soo said. "The humans were good at certain technical tasks. That is all. We are superior species, with millions of years of civilization. We can certainly manage our own infrastructure, but the evidence shows temporary adjustment problems." Kyung-soo interrupted. "Nothing more. We will adapt. We always have." "Counselor, 3 stations have had life support failures in the past month. Thousands of ships are stranded because they cannot get proper routing. The trade losses are in the trillions of credits." Kyung-soo's face darkened. "Are you saying we should beg the humans to come back? That we should admit we need them? That would make us look weak." "I am saying we should recognize what they contributed," soon he said carefully. "And find a way to—" "Enough," Kyung-soo said. "You are dismissed. Focus on training new workers, not on making excuses. The Council does not need humans. We will prove that." Soon he left his office feeling defeated. She had shown him the truth, and he had refused to see it. That night, she could not sleep. She kept thinking about all the systems that were failing, all the problems that kept multiplying, and she thought about something she had found buried in the code. When she had been studying the trade algorithm, she had found a comment in the programming. Comments were little notes that programmers left in their code to explain what they were doing. This comment was short and simple. It said, "Auto shutdown sequence initiated upon final human departure. Signed, Jae Hyun. Good luck." Soon he had thought it was just a farewell message. But now she wondered, had the humans designed their systems to fail without them? Or had they just known that no one else could maintain such complex systems? Either way, the result was the same. She accessed the Galactic News Network. Reports were flooding in from all over Council space. Station malfunctions, trade disruptions, system failures. The problems were not just in her sector, they were everywhere, and they were getting worse. Some of the alien species were starting to blame each other. The Talnari accused the Varl of incompetence. The Varl accused the Talnari of sabotage. Old grudges were surfacing now that the humans were not around to mediate. Soon he pulled up another file. It was a list of all the diplomatic disputes the humans had resolved in the past year alone. There were 3,000 entries, 3,000 conflicts that humans had quietly handled before they became serious problems. Who was handling those disputes now? Nobody. She watched the news reports scroll by. 2 minor conflicts had already escalated into armed skirmishes. Trade wars were breaking out between species that had been partners for decades. The careful peace that the council maintained was starting to crack. Soon he thought about Councillor Kyung-Soo's words. We survived for millions of years before the humans came. That was true. But for the past 200 years, the humans had been making everything work better, faster, more efficiently, and everyone had accepted those improvements without thinking about what would happen if the humans left. She pulled up one more document. It was Tae-sung's departure speech. She read it again, looking for something she had missed. We will take only what belongs to us. We will cause no damage. They had not caused any damage. That was the frightening part. Everything was breaking on its own, without any sabotage. The infrastructure was failing simply because the people who understood it were gone. Soon he closed her files and stared at the dark screen. Somewhere out there, beyond council space, the humans were watching. They had to be. They would know what was happening. Were they laughing? Were they angry? Were they sad? She suspected they were none of those things. They were probably just disappointed. Disappointed that the council had learned nothing. That even now, with everything falling apart, leaders like Kyung-Soo refused to admit how much humans had contributed. Pride was going to destroy the council. Soon he could see it clearly now. And there was nothing she could do to stop it. 6 months after the humans left, Commander Byung-ho received his orders. He was to take his fleet and find the humans. Not to fight them, to ask them to come back. The order came from the council itself, though they had worded it carefully. They called it a diplomatic mission to establish renewed contact. Everyone knew what it really meant. The council was desperate. Byung-ho was a career military officer of the Varl species. He had served for 40 years and never questioned his orders. But this mission troubled him. How did you ask someone to come back after you had celebrated their departure? His second officer was Yoon-ah, recently promoted after her work saving Station Gamma 9. She understood human systems better than most, which made her valuable. It also made her angry. They want us to find the humans and beg them to return, she said as they prepared the fleet. But they will not admit they were wrong. They will not apologize. Orders are orders, Byung-ho said. Orders will not matter if the humans refuse to listen, Yoon-ah replied. The fleet departed from council space 3 days later. 5 ships, equipped with long-range scanners and diplomatic quarters. Their mission was simple in theory. Find humanity, establish contact, negotiate their return. But where had the humans gone? Byung-ho started with the obvious locations. Earth, humanity's homeworld, was the first stop. The fleet arrived to find the planet defended by automated weapon platforms. A recorded message played on loop. This space is claimed by humanity. Turn back. They turned back. Byung-ho did not want to start a war. Next, they tried the former human colonies. New Busan, Nova Seoul, New Pyongyang. All of them were the same. Empty cities, running machines, no people. This is strange, Yoon-ah said as they surveyed New Busan from orbit. Why leave everything intact? Why not take the equipment or destroy it? Byung-ho had no answer. The empty colonies felt like museums or tombs. They spent weeks checking every known human location. All empty. The humans had vanished completely. It was as if millions of people had simply disappeared. Could they have left the galaxy entirely? One of his officers suggested. Impossible, Byung-ho said. Human ships are not that advanced. They must be hiding somewhere. But where? Space was vast. If the humans did not want to be found, they could hide forever. Yuna studied the scanner data from the empty colonies. Something bothered her. The extraction operations had been enormous. The humans had stripped the mining sites bare before leaving. They had taken metal, rare minerals, processed materials, enough resources to build cities. They did not just leave, she said. They took everything they needed to start over somewhere new. This was not an escape. It was a planned migration. But where? Byung-ho asked. Yuna pulled up a star chart. She marked all the regions of space the Council had explored and claimed. Then she highlighted the areas marked as uninhabitable or too dangerous for colonization. There, she said, pointing to a massive nebula. The Kethys Nebula. The radiation makes scanners useless. The stellar winds make navigation dangerous. The Council declared it off-limits 50 years ago. You think they went into the nebula? Byung-ho asked. That would be suicide. Would it? Or would it just be very difficult? And would difficult be enough to keep everyone else out? Byung-ho considered this. The humans were stubborn. Everyone knew that. If they wanted to hide, they would choose somewhere no one else could follow. Set course for the Kethys Nebula, he ordered. The journey took 2 weeks. As they approached, the nebula filled their view screens. It was beautiful and terrifying. Purple and blue clouds of gas stretched across light years of space. Lightning storms crackled in the depths. Radiation readings climbed to dangerous levels. We cannot go in there, his navigation officer said. Our shields cannot handle the radiation. Take us to the edge, Byung-ho said. Launch scanner drones. They sent dozens of drones into the nebula. Most were destroyed within hours by the radiation and stellar winds. But a few survived long enough to send back data. And that data changed everything. Commander, Yuna said, her voice shaking. You need to see this. The drone images showed structures. Massive structures. Deep in the nebula, hidden from outside scanners, humanity had built something enormous. Stations, habitats, shipyards, an entire civilization hidden in the stellar storm. How is this possible? Byung-ho whispered. This would take decades to build. Decades. 200 years, Yuna said. They have been building this since they joined the Council. They knew they would need it someday. Byung-ho felt cold. The implications were staggering. While the humans had been working alongside the Council, maintaining their infrastructure and solving their problems, they had also been preparing to leave. For 200 years, they had planned for this moment. They never trusted us, he said. Can you blame them? Yuna asked. Back on the Council homeworld, Mira watched her civilization crumble. 4 Council species had collapsed into civil war. The conflict started small trade disputes, territorial disagreements, old grudges. But without human mediators to resolve them peacefully, they escalated. Now there was fighting on a dozen worlds. The Council tried to send peacekeepers, but the peacekeeping forces were understaffed and overwhelmed. Many of the logistics officers who coordinated military operations had been human. Mira no longer worked for the Council. She had been fired after publishing a report that criticized their handling of the human departure. But she still had access to the public networks. She watched the news and felt sick. Station failures had killed thousands of people. Trade collapse had created shortages of food and medicine on dozens of worlds. The infrastructure problems that Soon-hee had warned about 6 months ago had multiplied. Now power grids were failing. Water systems were breaking down. Communications were sporadic. Galactic civilization was unraveling. Mira sat in her small apartment, staring at her datapad. She had no job, no purpose. Her career was over because she had told the truth. Then she received a message. It was encrypted with an old code she recognized. Something she and a human friend had used years ago. The friend's name was Sung Woo. He had been a junior diplomat before the evacuation. Her hands trembled as she decrypted the message. It was short. Mira, you were right. You tried to warn them. When they are finally ready to listen, not to command, you will know where to find us. Coordinates attached. Stay safe. Sang Woo. Mira stared at the coordinates. She ran them through her navigation database. They pointed to the Kethis Nebula. She sat back, mind racing. Sang Woo had sent her away to find the humans. But why? What did he expect her to do with this information? The answer was obvious. When the council finally admitted they needed help, someone would have to go to the humans. Someone they might actually listen to. Someone who had defended them when everyone else celebrated their departure. Mira saved the coordinates in a secure file. Then she waited. Commander Byung-ho tried to send a message into the nebula. It was simple and direct. This is Commander Byung-ho of the Galactic Council Fleet. We request permission to enter and speak with humanity's representatives. No response came. They waited for 3 days. Byung-ho sent the message again and again. Nothing. They know we are here, Yuna said. Those structures we saw were not primitive. They have sensors. They can detect us. Then why do they not answer? Byung-ho asked. Because they do not want to talk to us, Yuna said simply. Byung-ho felt frustration building. He had his orders. He was supposed to establish contact. But you could not negotiate with people who would not even acknowledge your presence. On the 5th day, they finally received a response. It was not a message. It was a ship. A human vessel emerged from the nebula. It was sleek and advanced, with design elements Byung-ho had never seen before. It stopped just outside weapons range and held position. They are scanning us, his sensor officer reported. After several minutes, a communication channel opened. A woman's face appeared on the view screen. She looked young, with short black hair and tired eyes. This is Captain Hae-won of the Human Federation, she said. Her voice was cold. You are in restricted space. Leave. Immediately. Captain, I am Commander Byung-ho. I come on behalf of the Galactic Council. We wish to speak with your leaders. The Council has nothing to say that we want to hear, Hae-won replied. Leave. Now. Please, Byung-ho said. The Council sent me to ask for help. Our civilization is failing. We need... You need us? Hae-won interrupted. Her voice was sharp. Where was that need 6 months ago? Where was it for the past 200 years? We worked for you. We maintained your systems. We solved your problems. And you treated us like primitive children. You laughed when we left. Byung-ho had no response to that. It was all true. We are not coming back, Hae-won said. We are done being your servants. Done being dismissed and disrespected. You wanted us gone. You have your wish, but thousands are dying. Yuna said, stepping forward. The infrastructure is collapsing. Species are at war. Please, we were wrong. We admit it. Hae-won's expression did not change. I grew up on New Busan. I watched my father work 12-hour shifts, maintaining systems you people would not even try to understand. He was denied promotions because he was human. Called adequate. Called primitive. He did the work of 5 people and received half the pay. Quote, she leaned closer to the camera. My father is not going back. I am not going back. None of us are going back. Not to be your tools again. Then what do you want? Byung-ho asked. What would it take for you to help us? For the first time, Hae-won smiled. But it was not a friendly smile. When you are ready to treat us as equals, not servants. When you are ready to admit what you did wrong. When you are ready to change everything about how the council works, then maybe, we will talk. I can bring that message to the council, Byung-ho said. Do that, Haewon said, and tell them this. Every day they wait, more of their civilization falls apart. The clock is ticking. We can wait. Can they? The communication cut off. The human ship turned and disappeared back into the nebula. Byung-ho stood on his bridge, feeling very old. He had been sent to negotiate. But the humans would not even talk. Not yet. They wanted the council to suffer first, to understand what they had lost. Set course back to council space, he ordered. I need to deliver their message. As his ship turned away from the nebula, Byung-ho thought about what Haewon had said. She wanted the council to change everything, to admit they were wrong, to treat humans as equals. Would the council ever do that? Or would pride destroy them all first? He did not know the answer, but he feared he already knew what the council would choose. 1 year after the departure, the council finally voted to seek peace with humanity. The vote was not unanimous. Many members still resisted, but the choice was clear: adapt or die. The casualties had been staggering. 30,000 dead from station failures. Millions displaced by civil wars. Entire economies collapsed from the trade disruptions. The proud galactic civilization was now a shadow of what it had been. Councillor Kyung-soo voted against seeking peace until the very end. When the final tally came, in 70 votes for peace, 30 against, he left the chamber in disgust. His pride would not bend. The council chose Mira to lead the diplomatic mission. She was surprised by the appointment. She had been fired, disgraced, turned into an outcast for speaking the truth. Now, they wanted her back. Why me? She asked Councillor Vrek, who had once laughed at the human departure. Vrek looked tired. He had aged visibly in the past year. The weight of his mistakes showed in every line on his face. Because you were right, he said quietly. You warned us. We did not listen. The humans know you tried to defend them. If anyone can negotiate with them, it is you. No. Mira accepted the mission. But she had one condition. I choose my own team. The council agreed. Mira's first choice was Wu Jin, a former administrator from New Busan. He was not human, but he had married a human woman before the evacuation. He had chosen to stay with his wife in council space, becoming one of the few who had genuine relationships with humans beyond just working together. His wife had left in the evacuation. He had not seen her in a year. Mira knew. He was desperate to find her. Will you help me negotiate with humanity? She asked him. Yes, Woojin said immediately. But I need to know, do you really want peace? Or does the council just want their servants back? I want peace, Mira said. What the council wants does not matter anymore. If we do not fix this, there will be no council left to want anything. She gathered her team over the next 2 weeks. Diplomats who had worked well with humans. Engineers who respected human innovation. Analysts who understood what had gone wrong. 20 people total, carefully chosen. They departed for the Kethis Nebula on a single ship. Mira deliberately chose a small vessel, not a military fleet. This was not an invasion. It was a request. Commander Byung-ho had given her the coordinates where he had encountered Captain Haewon. Mira also had Sang-woo's coordinates, stored secretly in her files. She would use those if needed. The journey took 3 weeks. Mira spent the time preparing. She studied everything about human culture. She reviewed all the data on what had gone wrong. She practiced what she would say. But she knew words might not be enough. How did you apologize for 200 years of disrespect? How did you convince people to help those who had treated them as inferiors? When they reached the nebula's edge, Mira sent a message. She used the same channel Byung-ho had used, broadcasting on all frequencies. This is Mira, speaking for the Galactic Council. I am here to negotiate peace. I am not here to command or demand. I am here to listen. Please, give us a chance to make things right. They waited. On the fourth day, a ship emerged from the nebula. Mira recognized it from Byung-ho's reports. Captain Haewon's vessel. The communication channel opened. Haewon appeared on screen. She looked at Mira for a long moment. I know you, Haewon said. You were the analyst who tried to warn the council. They fired you for it. Yes, Mira said. And now they send you to negotiate? Yes, Haewon smiled slightly. Follow us. But be warned, the nebula is dangerous. If your ship cannot handle it, turn back now. We will follow, Mira said. The human ship turned and dove into the nebula. Mira's vessel followed. Immediately, alarms blared. Radiation levels spiked. The ship's shields strained under the stellar winds. We cannot stay in here long, the pilot said. Our shields will fail in 6 hours. We will not need 6 hours, Mira said. She hoped she was right. They followed Haewon's ship deeper into the purple and blue clouds. The journey was terrifying. Lightning storms erupted around them. Their scanners were nearly useless in the interference. They could only follow the beacon from the human ship ahead. Then, suddenly, they emerged into a clear zone, and Mira gasped. Before them was New Terra, a massive structure that dwarfed anything the Council had built. Multiple ring habitats, connected by transport tubes, shipyards, farms, manufacturing plants, defensive platforms, everything needed for a complete civilization. And it was beautiful. The design was elegant and efficient in a way that pure Council architecture never achieved. This was human engineering at its finest. Unburdened by alien criticism, thousands of human ships moved through the structure. Mira could see on her sensors that the population here numbered in the millions. Humanity had not just hidden, they had thrived. How long? She whispered. How long have they been building this? Woojin, standing beside her, was crying quietly. His wife was somewhere in that structure. After a year of separation, she was so close. Haewon's ship guided them to a docking port. Security was tight. Human guards in advanced armor checked their credentials. Finally, they were allowed to proceed. The interior of New Terra was stunning. Clean, efficient, filled with green spaces and natural light. The humans had not just built a space station. They had built a home. They were escorted to a meeting chamber. Mira expected something cold and official. Instead, they entered a room with comfortable chairs arranged in a circle. No table to separate people. No elevated seats to show hierarchy. Just a circle of equals. And there, waiting for them. He looked older than the last time Mira had seen him. His hair had more gray. But his eyes were the same. Calm. Intelligent. Measuring. Mira, he said. Please, sit. Your team as well. They sat. Mira noticed other humans entering the room. She recognized some of them. Engineers she had worked with. Diplomats who had served on the council. And Sangwoo, who nodded to her with a slight smile. Tae-sung sat across from her. You have come to negotiate, he said. So, let us negotiate. But first, I must know, are you here because the council realizes they were wrong? Or because they need us? Mira took a deep breath. Both, she said honestly. The council is collapsing. Thousands have died. Civilizations are falling into war. We desperately need your help. And? Tae-sung prompted. And you were treated unjustly, Mira continued. For 200 years, humanity maintained our infrastructure, solved our problems, and kept our civilization running. In return, you received low pay, no recognition, and constant disrespect. You were called primitive, adequate, inferior. That was wrong. Deeply wrong. Tae-sung listened without expression. Go on, I cannot undo 200 years of mistakes, Mira said. I cannot bring back the humans who died from overwork and lack of proper safety equipment because Council species considered them expendable. I cannot erase the insults, the dismissals, the casual cruelty. She met his eyes. But I can say this. I am sorry. On behalf of the Council, on behalf of my species, on behalf of all of us who benefited from your work and gave nothing back, I am sorry. I am sorry. The room was silent. Taesung studied her face. You are sorry, he said finally. But is the Council sorry? Or are they just desperate? Some are sorry, Mira said. Some are just desperate. Some still refuse to admit they did anything wrong. The Council is not united on this. At least you are honest, Taesung said. He leaned back. Let me tell you what it took to build this place. 200 years of secret construction, trillions of credits diverted from human wages. Ships that supposedly carried trade goods, but actually carried building materials. Workers who volunteered for dangerous missions in the nebula, knowing they might die. He gestured around the room. 40,000 humans died building New Terra. 40,000. They died in construction accidents, radiation exposure, equipment failures. We buried them in space because we could not risk the Council discovering what we were doing. Mira felt tears on her cheeks. She had not known. None of them had known. We did all this, Taesung continued, because we knew we would never be accepted. We worked for the Council for 200 years, hoping things would change. Hoping we would eventually be seen as equals. But it never happened. Every generation of humans served and was dismissed. So, we built our own future. And now, Mira asked, what future do you want? Taesung stood. He walked to a window that showed New Terra stretching out below. We want what every species wants. Respect. Recognition. A voice that matters. We want to work with others, not for them. We want our children to grow up without being told they are inferior. He turned back to Mira. If you came here thinking we would just return and fix everything, you are mistaken. We will never go back to the way things were. Never. 42. Never. Then what will you do? Mira asked. That depends on you, Taesung said. On what you are really offering. Mira stood as well. She had prepared for this moment. I am offering the end of the Galactic Council. Not as a negotiation, as a fact. The Council is already dead, it just has not admitted it yet. Taesung raised an eyebrow. Explain. The Council was built on the idea that older species were superior to younger ones, Mira said. That age meant wisdom, and wisdom meant authority. But that was always a lie. Age just meant age. Wisdom comes from listening, learning, adapting. The Council never did any of those things. She pulled out a data pad. I have a proposal. Not to restore the Council, but to replace it with something new. A federation where all species have equal voice, where decisions are made by consensus, not hierarchy, where contribution matters more than age, and respect is earned, not assumed. She held out the data pad to Taesung. This is a draft charter. It abolishes the Council structure, creates a federation of equals, includes protections for minority species, establishes fair labor laws, guarantees that no species can be treated as inferior. Taesung took the pad. He read through it carefully. Other humans gathered around to look. This is radical, he said finally. Many Council species would never accept this. Then they can choose isolation? Mira said. The ones who want to survive, who want to build something better, will join. The rest can keep their pride and their prejudice. We will build a new civilization without them. And humans? Taesung asked. What do humans get in this new federation? Equality, Mira said simply. True equality. Not tolerance. Not acceptance. Equality. You contribute your skills, your innovations, your hard work. In return, you receive fair compensation, genuine respect, and an equal voice in all decisions. And who controls the core technologies? Taesung asked. The systems that keep everything running? This was the crucial question. Mira had debated it with her team for weeks. Humanity does, she said. Not as servants, but as guardians. You designed those systems. You understand them. It would take other species decades to learn them fully. In the new Federation, humans would train others, share knowledge, but maintain final authority over critical infrastructure. That gives us enormous power, Taesung said. Yes, Mira agreed. Because you earned it. And because we finally learned what happens when we take your contributions for granted. Taesung was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, I need to discuss this with our leadership. This decision affects all of humanity. It is not mine alone to make. I understand, Mira said. How long do you need? 3 weeks, Taesung said. We will debate, vote, decide together. That is how humans do things, Mira nodded. We will wait. But please, decide quickly. Every day we delay, more people die in council space. I know, Taesung said. His voice was sad. Believe me, we know. The 3 weeks felt like years to Mira. She and her team remained on New Terra as guests while humanity debated their future. The humans were polite, but distant. They had not forgiven yet. Maybe they never would. During that time, Mira explored New Terra. She saw the farms where humans grew food in carefully controlled environments. She watched children play in parks designed to feel like Earth. She visited memorials for the 40,000 who died building this sanctuary. One memorial particularly struck her. It was a simple wall with 40,000 names carved into metal. Below the names, a single sentence. They built tomorrow, so their children could have today. Mira stood before that wall for an hour, reading names. So many names, so many lives spent creating something their own council had forced them to hide. Woojin had reunited with his wife, Eunji. Mira saw them together in the parks, holding hands like young lovers. Eunji was angry that he had stayed behind in council space, but also grateful he had come now. Their reunion gave Mira hope. If separated people could come back together, maybe separated civilizations could too. On the 15th day, Sangwoo invited Mira to lunch. They sat in a small restaurant overlooking one of New Terra's agricultural rings. How do you think the vote will go? Mira asked. Sangwoo was quiet for a moment. It will be close, he said. Many humans want to stay hidden. They are tired of dealing with other species. They want to build our own civilization and leave the galaxy alone. And you? Mira asked. I want to go back, Sangwoo said. Not because I miss the council, but because isolation is not who we are. Humans thrive on connection, on challenges, on working with others. If we hide forever, we lose part of what makes us human. Even after everything that happened? Especially after everything that happened, Sangwoo said. We learned hard lessons. Now we can teach them to others. Build something better. That is what humans do. We fail, we learn, we build. Mira hoped he was right. She hoped enough humans felt the same way. The debate in the human assembly was fierce. Haewon argued passionately for remaining isolated. Her father, Dong-woo, supported her. They represented thousands who had been hurt too deeply to risk trusting again. But others spoke too. Jae-hyun, the programmer who had locked down the council systems, surprised everyone by arguing for return. We made our point. One place, he said. They know what they lost. Now we can negotiate from strength, not weakness. We can build the future we want, instead of hiding from the one they created. Engineers argued both sides. So did doctors, teachers, farmers, artists. Everyone had an opinion. The debates were broadcast throughout New Terra. This was not a decision made by leaders alone. Every human had a voice. On the 20th day, Taesung invited Mira to observe the final debate. She sat in the gallery of the assembly hall, watching thousands of humans argue their future. A young woman named Ji Woo stood at the podium. She could not have been older than 25. "I was born on New Terra," she said. "I have never seen Earth except in pictures. I have never met an alien. All I know is what my parents told me, that the galaxy rejected us. So we built our own home." She paused, looking around the chamber. "But is that enough? Do we really want to spend our lives hiding? My parents died building this place, so I could be free. But am I free if I am trapped in this nebula? Or am I just in a prettier cage?" The chamber was silent. Ji Woo continued. "I want to see the galaxy. I want to meet other species. I want to build and create and explore. I want what every human has always wanted, a place in the universe. If we stay here, we are letting fear win. And humans do not surrender to fear." 84, 84, 84, 84, 84, 84, 84, 84. When she finished, the chamber erupted in applause. Mira saw tears on many faces. The vote was held immediately after. It took 3 hours to count all the votes. The assembly hall was packed. The entire population of New Terra watched on screens throughout the structure. The tension was overwhelming. Finally, Taesung stepped to the podium with the results. "The vote is complete," he announced. "For returning to galactic space and negotiating a new federation, 23,400,000. For remaining isolated, 21,600,000. The margin was tiny, barely over half, but it was enough. Humanity will return," Taesung said. "But on our terms. We will help build a new federation. We will share our knowledge and skills. But we will never again be treated as inferiors. This, I swear to you all." The chamber erupted in noise. Some cheered, some cried, some sat in stunned silence. Mira felt relief flood through her. They had a chance, a real chance, to fix everything, but she also felt the weight of what came next. They had to make this work. If the new federation failed, if humans were betrayed again, there would be no third chance. The next week was spent planning. Taesung assembled a team to return to council space with Mira. They would present the proposal for the new federation. They would begin the work of rebuilding. But first, they needed to address the immediate crises. Humans dispatched ships to the worst disaster zones. Engineers went to repair failing stations. Logistics experts started untangling the trade network. Medical teams went to worlds suffering from infrastructure collapse. They did not wait for permission. They just went and started helping. Haewon led one of the relief missions. Her ship arrived at Station Gamma 9, where Yuna was still struggling to keep the life support running. Haewon brought a team of engineers and began repairs immediately. Yuna watched in amazement as the humans fixed in hours what she had struggled with for months. They moved with practiced efficiency, understanding systems she could barely comprehend. "Why are you helping us?" Yuna asked Haewon. "After everything we did?" Haewon looked at her. "Because people are dying. That is reason enough. We can hate what the council did and still help the innocent people suffering because of it." "I am sorry," Yuna said quietly. "I am sorry for all of it." "I know," Haewon said. "Everyone is sorry now. The question is whether that is enough to build something better." 2 months after Mira's arrival at New Terra, a joint Human Council delegation returned to Council space. They came in a fleet of mixed ships, human vessels, alongside Council craft, a symbol of cooperation. The Council chamber was packed for the announcement. Many councillors were absent. Their species had collapsed into chaos or isolation. But those who remained listened as Taesung and Mira jointly presented the proposal. The Galactic Council is dissolved, Mira announced. In its place, we propose the Federation of Equals, a new government where every species has equal voice, where decisions are made by consensus, where respect is earned through contribution, not assumed through age. 2-3. Taesung continued. Humanity will help rebuild galactic civilization. We will maintain critical infrastructure and train others to do the same. We will share our knowledge freely. But we will do this as partners, not servants. As equals, not subordinates. He held up a document. This is the Federation Charter. It guarantees rights for all species. It prohibits discrimination based on age, origin, or biology. It establishes fair labor laws, safety standards, and equal representation. Any species who accepts this charter may join the Federation. Those who do not may remain independent. The debate lasted 3 days. Many counselors resisted. They could not accept losing their superior status. Counselor Kyung-soo gave an angry speech about the impropriety of letting humans dictate terms. But in the end, reality won. The council species could not survive alone. They needed the Federation. They needed humanity. Pride was a luxury they could no longer afford. The vote passed with 70% approval. The Galactic Council officially dissolved. The Federation of Equals was born. The old council building was demolished in a ceremony attended by millions. The massive structure that had stood for 10,000 years came down in a cloud of dust. In its place, construction began on a new building, a circular chamber where no seat would be higher than any other. The transition was painful. Some species refused to join the Federation. The Talnari, led by Vrek's successor, chose isolation rather than admit equality with humans. They withdrew to their home worlds. Other species followed, but most joined. They had learned the hard way that cooperation was better than pride, that contribution mattered more than age, that every species had something valuable to offer. Humanity took its place in the new Federation as equal partners. They maintained control of critical technologies, training others over decades to understand them. It was not charity. It was insurance. Never again would galactic civilization be so dependent on one species that losing them meant collapse. Counselor Vrek, humbled by catastrophe, met privately with Tae-sung. I laughed when you left, Vrek admitted. I thought we were better off without you. I was a fool. Yes, you were, Tae-sung said without malice. But fools can learn. That is what this is about. All of us learning together. Years passed. The Federation grew stronger. New species joined. Old wounds slowly healed. The infrastructure that had collapsed was rebuilt. Better than before. Trade resumed, now more efficient and fair. The wars ended, replaced by cooperative development. Mira became the Federation's first Secretary of Unity. She spent her days mediating between species, solving problems, building bridges. It was exhausting work, but satisfying. She was helping create something better than what came before. Sang-woo worked beside her as Deputy Secretary. Together, they handled thousands of disputes, prevented dozens of conflicts, and slowly built trust between species who had been enemies. Soon the analyst who had first warned about the collapse, became head of the Infrastructure Council. She worked with human engineers to train new generations in maintaining galactic systems. It would take decades. But eventually, multiple species would understand the technologies that kept civilization running. Jae-hyun, the programmer, opened a school. He taught alien students the principles of human engineering. Some struggled. Others excelled. But all learned the most important lesson. Knowledge was power, and power shared was power multiplied. Hae-won continued her relief work, eventually becoming commander of the Federation Emergency Response Fleet. She led missions to disaster zones across the galaxy. Her father, Dong-woo, worked beside her. They had chosen to help, rather than hide. And that choice defined them. Decades after the humans departed in silence, Haewon's granddaughter, Jin-Ah, entered the Federation Assembly as the youngest representative in history. She was born after the collapse, after the rebuilding. She knew the old council only from history lessons. In her first speech to the assembly, Jin-Ah said, "My grandmother tells me about the day humans left, how the council celebrated, how they thought they were better off without us. She tells me so we never forget what almost happened, so we never take each other for granted again." She looked around the circular chamber at representatives from dozens of species. "We are not perfect. We still have conflicts. We still make mistakes. But we face them together, as equals. That is what my ancestors fought for. That is what we must preserve." The assembly applauded. Not because the speech was eloquent, but because it was true. Far from the Federation's heart, the old Talnari territories remained isolated. Councillor Kyung-soo had lived to see his species decline. They had refused to change. And the galaxy had moved on without them. In his final years, Kyung-soo wrote a memoir. In it, he admitted his greatest mistake. "I thought age meant wisdom. I thought our ancient civilization could not learn from young humans. I was wrong. The humans were not primitive. They were patient. They worked among us for 200 years, waiting for us to see them as equals. When we refused, they left. And in their absence, we learned the hardest lesson of all, that without them, we were the primitive ones." The memoir was published after his death. It became required reading in Federation schools, a reminder of what pride costs. On New Terra, now a thriving settlement open to all species, a memorial stood beside the wall of 40,000 names. This memorial was newer, dedicated to those who died in the collapse. Tens of thousands of names from dozens of species, all who suffered because the council refused to change. Beneath the names, an inscription: "They died so we could learn. Honor them by building better." Every year, on the anniversary of humanity's departure, the Federation held a moment of silence. Not to celebrate leaving, not to mourn the lost, but to remember that silence can be a message, that sometimes the loudest statement is walking away. And humanity had walked away, not in anger, not in hatred, but in disappointment. They had returned not because they were needed, but because they chose to. Not as servants, but as partners. Not as inferiors, but as equals. And that made all the difference. The council had rejoiced too soon. They had thought losing humanity meant freedom. Instead, it meant collapse. But from that collapse came something better, something that could only exist when all species stood on level ground. The galaxy learned slowly, painfully, but thoroughly. Respect cannot be commanded, cooperation cannot be forced, and civilization cannot be built on the backs of those you refuse to value. Humanity had departed in silence, but they returned with voices that could no longer be ignored. And in doing so, they changed the galaxy forever.